Hi everyone. So just kind of continuing on the theme of the expansive energy that we've been feeling throughout May. I feel like that is still really strong at the moment. There's been a lot of energy upgrades and we've moved past the kind of harsh stripping of the energy of April, where we were having to kind of deal with a lot of shadow work and release a lot of density. And May is really providing us with an opportunity to expand and to grow and to set our intentions for manifesting the things that we wish to bring into our future. I've also found that it's a time, the energy has kind of brought focus onto daydreaming, really, imagining things about the future. But obviously, it's quite easy to get caught in different scenarios when you do that. So just be aware that the thoughts and the visualizations that you might be having in a less conscious way than when you're doing it intentionally through a meditation or just through focusing, you're still going to be sending out that energy to the universe, which will respond to it as well. So just be aware that whatever you're putting your focus on is what you're going to eventually start to create a pattern for and start the blueprint for. So try and keep that in alignment with what you feel is for your highest and greatest good. Another thing that was shown to me a couple of days ago, and this did happen at some point during last year, I think about halfway through last year, so coming back around a similar time of year, that strong theme has come through again of the energy of the goddess rising. It's usually Isis that I see when experiencing this, but I think it's just symbolic of that feminine energy. And I have talked quite a bit previously about how masculine and feminine energy both need to rise in order for things to be in balance. But it seems to be that this divine feminine energy is rising and causing the masculine energy to fall into resonance with that and to also then rise, and eventually the two will align. So we might see that things seem a little bit out of balance, that we're seeing one predominantly over the other in the kind of spiritual outlook to begin with, but trust that process that energy is going to kind of begin to fall back into balance, especially if we can be conscious about that, particularly as women, in understanding that the balance is important, rather than just seeing it as an opportunity to kind of come out on top, because that, there's been many times in the past throughout humanity where one has been more dominant than the other. But as we raise our consciousness and we become more aware of the human experiences of others, it makes it easier to realize the beneficial outcome for all humans when we align and we rise together. And with this goddess rising energy as well, I saw another example of Kundalini rising, and that was being supported by this goddess energy. So they were showing me that there's a lot of people waking up at the moment to their kind of spiritual side, having that deep awakening process, and that the divine feminine energy is really there and it's really conducive to helping that to rise in a gentle way, particularly as for many, in order to go through that process, there's a lot of shadow work and a lot of density that has to be stripped away, a lot of things that have to be confronted, sometimes in an unconscious way. And so that kind of goddess energy has a gentleness to it, but also a directness as well. And that balance is able to make that process maybe a little bit easier for anyone who's kind of struggling with that. I think this is probably quite the last couple of generations have been maybe confusing times for a lot of men too, because roles have kind of changed. We're all experiencing things differently, and I feel that over the next few years we'll actually start to see why that happened. not just to give women opportunities, but also for men to be able to tune into their consciousness a little bit more, although they've maybe felt a little bit lost with that process over the last sort of 20 or 30 years. As with everything, when we go through something difficult or something that seems confusing, once we get to the other side of that, it's easier to be able to look back and understand the purpose of that experience, whether it's individually or collectively. So, yeah, I think we're really going to start to see how that plays out in the rise of consciousness as we begin to balance ourselves out altogether and lift our consciousness and our frequency altogether.